I'm Breck. I'm 18 years old, and currently I live in Miami.
Awesome. Are you born and raised in Miami, Breck, or where are you from originally?
No, I just moved here about 2 months ago, and I grew up in Colorado.
What brings you to Miami now?
So I'm an all-star cheerleader. I go to Top Gun. I don't know if you know of that, but that's my main reason for moving to Miami. I made a world's team at Top Gun, and that was my dream. So here I am. Yeah, that's why I'm here.
Awesome. That's exciting. So I'm assuming you've been cheerleading your whole life and competitively, and now the dream is here.
Yep. Yeah.
Awesome. And so with that, you're 18 years old. Are you foregoing college right now because of Top Gun, or are you trying to do both at the same time, or what's your situation with school?
I am not going to college right now. I'm considering it. I don't think I want to go to college unless I have unless I'm in the situation where I'm like, I want this degree for this job. Otherwise, I don't really see the need to go just to go. And if I were, then I would probably cheer because more than likely I would get some kind of scholarship. It's not my plan right now.
So what are your long-term career goals right now? Well, you're young, short-term and then long-term.
Yeah. Okay. I guess short-term. Well, right now I just got my first job. I've never had a job until I just graduated high school, moved out. So right now I'm a host, which is fun. I love my job. But it's my first job, so I know I'm not going to be there forever. I want to move past that eventually.
How much are you making as a host right now?
I make like 16 an hour. And then I work probably 15 to 20 hours a week. So enough for what I need, but eventually I want and need more.
And so what are your kind of career goals after that?
Long term, I don't know yet. I'm very interested in science. And then also I do acting would be cool. I have been in a commercial and I have an agent and stuff like that. I'm not aggressively pursuing that as necessarily a career, just more something I like to do. Career-wise, I still don't know. I think there's a lot that I would like and a lot that I would be good at.
Yeah. I mean, you're young, you're 18 years old. Most people, even when they're 40, 50, still don't know what they want to do with their careers. So you have plenty of time to figure that out. But that's cool that you're pursuing a passion right now, going to Top Gun and pursuing the cheerleading route. And there's definitely careers you can have in that. I mean, you can go to college, like you said, and get a scholarship during college. And then there's obviously professional dancers, professional cheerleaders for a lot of sports teams. I don't know in terms of monetarily how lucrative those are, but I do know like some people cheer for like the Atlanta Falcons. And they also do have different jobs on the side as well, but they love continuing to pursue being a cheerleader. So,
and if there was more I could do with cheer, if I could make a career out of cheer, I would. There's just not that big of a market for that. But yeah.
Makes sense. And so, with Top Gun, how many hours a week what does your schedule look like with Top Gun right now?
Right now, I'm only there about maybe 5 hours a week. Not that. Or no, more than that. I'm there Tuesday, Thursday is when I have practice for 2.5 hours. And then I normally go in just on my own time, once or twice a week for an hour or two. And then frequently not maybe once a month, we'll have extra practices. So last weekend we had, 3 days worth of choreography. So we had a 11-hour day, then a 5-hour day. But on a week-to-week basis, probably maybe 10 hours.
And I'm assuming most people in your current team are similar age, 18 years old, give or take.
Yep. Everyone's about 18 to 25.
And moving to Miami. So most people typically move off to go to college, university, live in dorms when they leave the home, but you are now moving to Miami on your own. You're kind of having that individual living situation now. What is your current living situation?
Currently I live in a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment in it's called Kendall, and it's a suburb area of Miami. I have one roommate, so we both have our own room, and we just split rent down the middle, which right now both of our parents handle that on our behalf.
Both parents handle rent right now. But similar like college, parents are helping you out in that regard.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay. I was curious. I saw in the budget you sent over had no rent in there, so I know Miami is not a cheap place to live.
No.
So that makes sense.
I could not afford my rent if based off the job I do right now.
What is it? $1,500 a month split, each 3,000 total, or is it 1,500 total?
It's 2,900 total.
That's what I thought. Living in Miami, it's not a cheap place to live. So
yeah, no, and we're not in downtown Miami. We're maybe 30 minutes from that, so a suburb area, but still it's up there.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay. So you're young, you're 18 years old. Just now moving out of the house, having to take on some living expenses and stuff yourself, and your parents are helping you right now as well. But how would you define your current financial situation?
Stable. I pretty much get stable hours every week. My pay is always about the same. It comes every other week. And then I really don't have many expenses. Definitely more than what I had in high school. But as of right now, I'm making what I spend, and like I'm comfortable. Like I have spending money. I don't have really bills besides like my Sun Pass, so like my tolls. That's the only bills I have as of right now. So
yeah, okay. And how long have you lived in Miami on your own right now?
2 months.
2 months. Okay. And so, did you get a job like the first week that you moved down there, or
Yeah.
what was the process there?
So I had never had a job before, so I did work for my mom. She is an accountant, so I was able to kind of do some just administrative assistant stuff for her. So I guess kind of I had a job before that, but I wasn't very consistent with that. It was more just like in the summer for some extra cash. So applying for a job, obviously I have no resume really besides that. So I just applied online to multiple places, and then I walked in to North Italia, which is a restaurant in a downtown area near me. And I was like, oh, I applied online. They called me for an interview, and I got the job. So I had a job within like 4 days of living in Miami, which I felt really good about because I didn't want to have a period of time where I had no income.
Yeah, good. I mean, that's good. You were trying to find a job and hustling to get that so you can spend some money and enjoy Miami a little bit too on your own. Let's talk about your current financial picture. Do you have any debt right now?
No, I do not.
Good. 18 years old, no debt. Let's keep it that way for forever, unless you buy a house.
Forever. Yeah.
Great. And then in terms of assets or savings, do you have anything saved up right now?
I have like $500 in savings.
Okay.
That's it.
So you're in the positive then. That's a good start. 18 years old. Obviously, you're young and just moved out of the house, so good spot to be in. Parents are helping you out with your rent, but stable right now, have money that's covering your current expenses, and now I got to figure out what is your career path moving forward, how to kind of just continue to operate on your own and be independent. So, what financial goals do you have, if any, for your future?
I'm not super big. I'm not a crazy spender, and I like nice things, but I'm very kind of logical with that, I think. So realistically, I would want to be comfortable. I'm not very knowledgeable about this, but I do want to have investments and have assets and somehow create some kind of passive income. And realistically, I see myself like getting married and stuff and having a family. But with that, I don't think I would want to be a housewife, but I also don't want to be in a situation where I feel like I want to be in a situation where like the money I make from my job is like what we rely on, essentially. I would just want it to be extra money.
You're going to be in a comfortable financial situation where you can work if you want to and kind of do what you want, but not, hey, we solely depend on your income to live.
Yes, absolutely. I want the freedom to, travel and have nice things and go to dinners. But I don't care to live in I don't care to be a millionaire.
Well, let's talk about, I guess, your childhood and financial upbringing. So grew up in Colorado. What was your childhood like? Obviously, you're still young, so it was last few years really, but what was your childhood like growing up in Colorado?
Okay, so we moved into our house when I was about 4 years old. I have two younger siblings, a little sister and a little brother. We just lived in like a suburban area. It was a nicer, newer area though. It was good. We were just very I would say a middle class to like upper middle class. Just good. We would travel once or twice a year. My mom pretty much always had her job as an accountant as long as I can remember since I was very little. And then my dad, he is a sales engineer. So he worked for one company for about 10 or 12 years. And that was a really good opportunity because when he got that job, that opened up basically for us to have the money to start traveling and stuff like that. Because before that, we were just kind of where we were. Before we moved into that house when I was 4, we had one car and we would take him to the bus to go to work. And we had a 1-bedroom apartment where me and my sister shared a room. So then by the time he got that job, that really freed us up financially. And then when COVID happened, he got laid off of that job because he was kind of at the top of that company. So he was really expensive for them. And then he got a new job at a company called Genesis, which is I think it's one of those Fortune 500. I don't know, but I know he's more remote now. He doesn't have an office that he goes into, and he travels minimally for that job, but still just pretty much always had the same money. My dad got really into stocks and kind of investing and stuff maybe like 5-6 years ago. So I have learned a little bit from that. Yeah.
Awesome. So, kind of growing up, you've seen your parents go from, like you said, you were sharing a 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom, a bedroom with your sister in a small apartment to be able to afford a house and get new jobs and kind of work their way up to also with COVID affecting them financially, career wise, but dad's back on his feet and has a good job again. So that's good. And so you've definitely seen kind of the roller coaster of life through the lenses of your parents and being a part of it. How did your parents kind of approach money and teach you about money growing up?
They kind of have different, they get along very well, but they kind of have different views on money. My mom's a little bit more how I am. Kind of, he liked to more live in the moment. My dad still liked to travel and do things, but like he didn't really want to go to Disney, or spend a lot of money kind of living in the moment. And that was more of a recent mentality of his when I was younger. They kind of just didn't really have much of a plan. They were just kind of going, I don't know, just like living as we went. But I guess they taught me, they taught me about kind of how much things cost because starting in 6th grade, I would make money based off my grades. So the better my grades were, the more money I would make, and I would get paid like 4 times a year. So an A would be like $50 or something. So say I got like 4 A's and 4 B's, I would get like $250, $300. And that was kind of how I earned money, how I learned the value of money. And that's kind of when I got a debit card. That's how they taught me, okay, like this is how much things cost in the real world. I started having to buy my own clothes with the money that I earned from my grades. And through high school, I never had to pay for my own food or gas, but still I had to pay for my own clothes and make money based off my grades. So I think that helped a lot. Of course, moving out and now having to pay for everything and my food and my gas was still a shock, but it wasn't like I was just going from nothing and no experience and no understanding of how much things cost to like how I am now.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's an interesting way they kind of, instead of them just going out and buying you clothes, they kind of made you work for it with good grades and incentivized you that route. So I think that's a very fascinating way to kind of do it is they know they're going to have to buy you clothes either way. So they might as well incentivize you and kind of reward you and kind of make those decisions on your own with make sure you get good grades. So
yeah,
that's fascinating. So did they ever talk to you about money growing up or like outside the allowance type situations about their money, their spending or any of their financial situations?
Not that much. Because it was for the most part pretty stable. There was never a point where they're like, okay, guys, we need to cut back. I guess when COVID happened was more like when things changed a little bit. My dad picked up after he got laid off, he picked up the next job pretty quickly. But there was like a month or two where, and he was still getting paid from his previous job, but there was a month or two where they were like, okay, like we're not going to be going to dinners. We're not going to be, shopping or whatever. I guess with their financial situation, they didn't talk too much about it. It wasn't like a huge topic, just more, I guess, my dad went into work and I always saw my mom working from home and she had her job is part-time and it's like half remote, half she goes into the office. So we didn't like how much we saw my mom work, even though she was working part-time. But we knew that, she had to work realistically because me and my siblings were very active in sports and stuff. So I guess the most about their financial situation that they shared with us was like the fact that we're good off my dad's income. We're totally fine. Just to afford all of our sports and all of our activities, my mom has to work too. So we kind of understood why she was also working.
Yeah. And that's good. They kind of explained that situation to y'all as well, just so you're more transparent. Like I know cheerleading is not cheap. I know travel baseball or travel basketball or any of those types, athletics, golf, whatever, are not cheap sports to put kids through trainers, through travel teams, through competition teams. So it's kind of good that they explained some of those situations to y'all. I was fortunate. My parents paid for me to play travel baseball for a couple of summers. And I didn't really understand the cost of those until I kind of grew up and I was like, oh, wow, that was paid that much for 2 or 3 months of summer baseball. And you drove me across town every 2 days for a game. It's definitely a financial burden and just expense. So
yeah.
What you said your dad kind of got into investing a lot the last 5 or 6 years. What have you learned from him from that? And what have you seen him kind of do?
He had me, well, of course, when he got super into it, he then wanted to teach it to us, of course, me and my siblings. So he had me read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I don't know, you probably know the book. Yeah. So then that's kind of the book that taught me about like passive income and assets and stuff. He got into the stock market And I just remember that because I would remember like he would spend an hour or two on that a day, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And he's not as into the stock market now. But he did teach us a little bit about like when cryptocurrency came out, stuff like that. And he got really into investing. He also started his own business. So he does SEO and like website building. And that was a more recent thing. That only happened like a year ago because, that's when he really became more educated about money. Both of my parents went to college, but like he never had like a thorough understanding, I guess, of like how far investments and stuff can take you until, a little bit later.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, investing tools and platforms have become a lot more accessible to the masses in the last, especially the last 5 years or so, 5 to 8 years. I mean, when I started investing about over 10 years ago now. And I remember when I first had a Charles Schwab account that I was using, and I mean, you had to pay fees for every single time you traded stocks. And then I think Robinhood was one of the first ones that came out and said, oh, we don't offer any fees on any of our trades. And then now there's a lot of platforms that have essentially wiped out any fees when it comes to trading stocks. So they want to get more competitive platforms and have less fees and just incentivize people. Now you got all these different things from Acorns to Betterment to Wealthfront to Stash that have auto investing features where you kind of set it up and forget about it, and they put in different index funds. So the accessibility to investing is a lot easier now than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, et cetera. I mean, the stock market's been around for a long time since, I don't even know, the first year was opened. But at least 50, 60, 80 years from now, let's see, stock market first opened, it had to be the early 1900s. Oh, no, mine. Sorry. 1792 was the New York Stock Exchange opened technically. Centuries ago. So, but I mean, investing has been always very inaccessible for a lot of people. There hasn't been education out there for people to learn and kind of understand a little bit better. So that's neat that he's kind of started teaching a little bit about it. And just you to kind of understand. Are you familiar with what index funds are?
No. Is that similar? I'm trying to think. I had a math teacher that taught me about Roth IRA, but I don't know what index funds are.
So I'm assuming when your dad's investing, is he doing a lot of like single stocks, like buying Apple or buying Microsoft or buying like individual companies?
Yeah, I know that he did do single stocks. And I haven't really asked him about that more recently. I don't know what he's been doing lately, but I do remember at least when he first started, he would kind of pick different things to invest in and just do like a few at a time or whatever.
Yeah, so there's two different routes to kind of like invest, and you can go after single stocks, which is when you are buying a share or partial share, fractional share of a single company like Apple, like Microsoft, or any of those, and you're only owning part of that. So say Apple stock right now is $170 or $180, somewhere in that ballpark. And if you spend $180, you get one share of Apple, and that's it. Versus index funds are more, think of baskets of stocks. So S&P 500 is the top 500 companies in America by market cap. And so that includes Apple, Amazon, Visa, MasterCard, Tesla, NVIDIA, and Google, like all these different companies, the top 500. So if you're buying one share of an S&P 500 index fund, then it's essentially buying bits and pieces of those 500 companies. So if you put in, if you put in $100 in that, you're going to probably own 5% of Facebook, 5% of Apple, 5% of Microsoft, 2% of Visa, 2% of this company. And it's all kind of segmented out based off their market cap. And you own bits and pieces of it, and you'll own the smaller companies. You might only own 0.1% or 0.2%, but it kind of divides them up so you're not solely dependent on one company. I mean, if you look at the top 20 companies that were in existence in 2000 by market cap, like size of market cap, majority of those are not the top 20 companies in America today, because over the last 20 years, technology's changed a lot. Companies that were at the top are not as popular, don't have as many, are kind of fading out with their technology, or consumers aren't buying their products as much. So index funds kind of help you diversify and de-risk as well, because say you have all your money, we'll use Apple as an example, it's the largest American company right now. The world's $2 or $3 trillion size of this market. But you have all your money in Apple, and say for some reason Apple is gone 20, 30 years from now because someone else comes out with new technology, new phones that kind of puts Apple away. Frankly, if I had to bet, if I was a betting man, I'd say Apple's going to be here 20 or 30 years from now. But you never actually know what's going to happen. And BlackBerry could come back, or Samsung could launch a new phone, or Facebook could launch a phone. We don't know. And so if you put all your eggs in Apple, then they go bankrupt, something happens to them, or any company, all your money's gone if they fade away. versus if you put in all your money in index funds, you're diversified. So if one of those 500 companies goes under, your whole portfolio is not gone. And it helps de-risk you with that and buying bits and pieces of it. And frankly, I've learned my lesson trying to invest in single stocks. I've made money investing in single stocks. I've lost money investing in single stocks. But I realized that I'm not Warren Buffett. I'm not going to sit here and understand and read every single income statement, every single balance sheet, every single quarter for all these different companies that I'm looking at and knowing the world. And I'm better off personally. And I think Warren Buffett said like 90 or 95 or 99% of people are better off putting their money in index funds and forgetting about it, because I'm not going to sit here and outperform the S&P 500 because I'm not doing this full time. I'm not investing. I'm not researching these companies. And a lot of things are outside your control. I mean, when COVID happened, it destroyed the market cap of airlines, of travel companies, of hotels. And that's not something you can control or predict when you're reading balance sheets or income statements. So index funds are really a route to invest in a large group of companies, and they have index funds that are solely based on the S&P 500. They have index funds that are more small cap companies, so a little bit smaller. They have international ones. They have ones that are more technology driven. And so there's a lot of different baskets, but they all, at the end of the day, allow you to own bits and pieces of multiple different companies to de-risk yourself there when one company inevitably will start to fade or underperform the market. But there's also going to be ones in there that are going to overperform the market. They kind of balance it out. So does that make sense?
Yeah. No, that makes total sense, because like you said, it's way less risky. And then also you don't have to be as, I guess, knowledgeable about individual brands, rather just, okay.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't have to sit here and, obviously, like your dad, and it's great. A lot of people like doing this. They like to sit here and read about the financial knowledge and balance sheets and everything of companies. But if you don't have the time for that, if you don't have the care to do that, and if you're going to statistically probably underperform the market, it's better to put in index funds. You can set up automatic investing and you never have to worry about it. You never have to think about it. And obviously there's still risk with it because it does go with the U.S. stock market. If you're doing an S&P 500 fund, and like with COVID or last year, the stock market was down 20%. So a lot of companies were down, but a lot of technology companies that soared previous years were down even further. So there's definitely still risk with it, but long-term, you're better off because the U.S. stock market should continue to grow, or just the stock market in general. If you do a U.S. and international funds kind of together, companies will continue to grow. They should continue to grow, and that should continue to grow over time versus trying to sit here and time the market or pick and choose between different companies. So, but yeah, that's just one thing to kind of, and I'll send you some resources too after this to read up more on investing in index funds. There's a guy there, Ramit Sethi. He has a book called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And he talks a lot about automating your investing. And right now, with you being 18 years old, if you kind of set those systems up in place now and kind of set up a portfolio of index funds, that's going to help just pay dividends being 18 years old, and you start investing now versus later on in life. And he has a lot of just insights and thoughts on putting into different baskets of index funds and not having to worry about it, not having to think about what's happening to this company or that company, and not having to think, oh, should I sell this company or are they going to do well? So I'll send you those resources, and he's a great just person to learn from. So Rich Dad Poor Dad is a great book to kind of start teaching you about, hey, you need assets that will pay you. But Ramit's kind of another one when it comes to investing in the stock market, and index funds is a great place to educate yourself on. So I have a question for you when it comes to investing. So for context, the average return of the S&P 500 is about 10%. But typically it's good to put it at 7% to account for inflation. And I want to ask you, so if you're getting a 7% annual rate of return, so that means if you put in $100 year one, you have $107 at the end of year one. So you're earning 7% on your money. Do you know how much money you would have when you're 67? Since you're 18 right now, when you're 67, if you put in $100 a month?
Like I don't know, like 70,000?
So if you put in $100 a month for the next, what is that? 40 years, 49 years. I guess it's basically 49 years. If you put in $100 a month, you contribute about $58,000 to that. But if you put in $100 a month and got 7% return on your investment, put in good index funds, you'd have $500,000 when you're 67. And that's accounting for today's dollars because we're putting in at 7% versus 10% to account for 3% inflation. So
yeah,
your money starts to really compound over time when you're doing that. And that allows your money to grow a lot faster. So you put in essentially $58,800 over the course of those 49 years, but the growth on that money is $448,000. And that is money you're not touching. That is money that is just building based off of the stock market continuing to grow, and that's in index funds. So you're not having to sit here and sell Apple at the peak or sell Facebook at the peak or whatever it might be. What do you think about that?
I love that idea. I did download the Acorns app, but I don't really know like exactly. I put like $10 in because like
Acorns is a great app, honestly. I'm going to do a shameless plug here. I do have my referral link to Acorns in the description of all my videos. But Acorns, I started using it a few years ago as well. And I think it's great because you can set up auto investing $10 a week, whatever you're comfortable with initially. Set it up $10 a week. That just comes out of your bank account and you never have to think about it again. And that's how I got my wife to start investing as well, is she was kind of learning about investing. She was doing stuff with her retirement accounts at work, but outside of that, she wasn't. And I just started getting her put $10 a week into it. And then she's like, oh, this is fun. Let's continue to add more and just continue to do that. And that kind of got her more comfortable with it because it's really easy. It puts it into, so Acorns, for example, we're talking about index funds. Acorns has a multi-index fund kind of portfolio. So I know their aggressive fund is a lot in VOO, which is the S&P 500 index fund. They have like a mid-cap fund. They have an international fund. So they're taking your money and allocating that into different index funds so that they're not sitting here trying to day trade Apple or Amazon. They're putting in index funds so they have long-term growth. But that app is really fascinating because it teaches you that if you plant an acorn, it's going to grow into a big, beautiful tree. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's going to happen over decades and decades. So with you being 18 years old and you start putting in $100 a month, so that's $25 a week, that's $506,000 that you're going to have 49 years from now. And that's only contributing $60,000, under $60,000 over that time.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. And if you up that to, we'll call it $300 a month, and you do that consistently to your 67, that'd be $1.5 million. If you upped it to,
and especially,
go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially right now, since I have the financial freedom to do so, and like I'm secure in my money and I'm not in debt, I can do that. Like, so you're right. Since I have the ability to do that, I think I should do that.
Exactly. And because like right now, if you had a car payment that was like an 8% interest rate or 6% interest rate, or you had credit card debt, it doesn't make sense to be investing when you have high interest debt because your money is just going to the bank versus you're not gonna outperform 30% credit card debt investing in the stock market. And you're not going to outperform 9% interest rate debt with no risk in the stock market either. So since you're debt free and want to continue to be debt free, you can start now investing money and you can continue to grow that. If you're only comfortable putting $100 a month in right now, that's fine. And then if you get a pay raise, you get a new job or more hours, and you want to do $200 or whatever, you can start building that practice up now. And that'll pay off dividends. I mean, if you started putting in $500 a month right now, by the time you're 67, you'd contribute about $294,000 if you put in $500 a month for the next 49 years. But you'd have $2.5 million when you're 67 years old. And that's not a small amount of money. And that's, again, in today's dollars. If we didn't want to account for inflation, we wanted to say it was a 10% return, that'd be $7.8 million. We're going to take a 3% haircut on their average return to account for inflation and say, okay, be roughly $2.5 million. Which that doesn't sound like a bad gig to me if I'm you.
No, definitely not. And because, okay, yeah, $25 a week, like that's not really, it wouldn't affect me, basically. It wouldn't, like I wouldn't even notice it. And then boom, suddenly, years later, I have all these investments saved.
Exactly. You start slow with $25 and then say you get a pay raise. Okay, great. Let's up it to $35 or let's up it to $40. And then you just continue that. And you always, as Rich Dad Poor Dad says, like, got to pay yourself first. And if you're paying yourself first, then you're going to continue to learn how to live, not spending that money and continue investing that money. And one day you're going to have more money, making more money and be able to invest more. But since time's on your side, that's another big thing here. If say we're going to say $100 a week. So we said $100 a week for the next 49 years, it's $500,000. If you wait until you're 28 to start, that'd be $243,000. So that cuts it in half because you waited a decade. And that's only $12,000 in the next 10 years. But by you waiting an extra decade, that's going to cut the returns down. If you wait till you're 38, that's going to cut it to $112,000. You wait till you're 48, that's going to cut it to $47,000. You have time on your side right now, which is one of the most important factors of compound interest is time. Obviously, you need to be contributing money, but once you start having time on your side, it takes 7 to 10 years for your money to double. So it's called the rule of 72. If you're earning 10%, you divide 72 by 10, and it will take you about 7.2 years to double your money. But the thing that you have right now is time on your side. And by prolonging or by starting earlier, that means the less money you need to invest to be able to hit the same milestone. So like if you were 38 years old and you wanted to hit $500,000 by the time you were 67, in the same instance of investing $100 a month or now, from 38 to 67, you'd have to invest $450 to hit 506,000 versus right now, if you start, it's only $100. So that just shows, again, compound interest starting 20 years earlier, that's going to put you in a great spot to be there.
Yeah.
So just a little fun on your Sunday afternoon to learn about investing, and that if you start investing now, time is on your side. I mean, compound interest is one of the eighth wonders of the world, because I think Warren Buffett, like 98% of his wealth has occurred after he turned 56. And it's because he started having small wins. He was still worth billions of dollars, I think, when he was 56 or something. But he was like worth $2 or $5 billion, and now he's worth over $100 billion because it just continues to compound over time. And he's frankly outperforms the market, and it compounds faster than the average investor index funds. But it's all about compound interest and time. So
yeah, that's true, and that's smart. I'm glad that I'm at least aware of this now before, well, hopefully never getting into debt. I'm glad that I'm aware of like what I can do right now, because the earlier I start, the more I'll have invested, and like the more money I'll make from it. So that's a brilliant thing. Like I just now started getting income, so I'm going to start investing immediately.
Awesome. I mean, that's the way to do it. Is take action. You're not in debt, and you're just getting off your feet and trying to understand and figure out where you're going, but be able to start investing while you're at it right now. And obviously, you're going to have to account for when you do have living expenses, when your parents aren't paying for it anymore, and have to think about jobs, increase your income so you can afford, if you want to stay in Miami, continue cheerleading, and have the flexibility to do cheerleading and have a job as well. Because obviously there's different hours and choreography and stuff like that kind of might prohibit some jobs. But right now, if your parents are paying for your housing, it's not a bad idea to be investing $25 a week, but you also need to make sure you figure out a plan with them long-term too, that, okay, you're going to take over this rent when you're 21, maybe it's when you're 20, whatever y'all work out on. I don't want you living off your parents till you're 30 and then paying your rent and still investing. But since you're not going to college right now and they're helping you out this way financially, it's a great spot to be in, and take advantage of it to stay out of debt. Don't go finance a new car for $50,000. Don't go finance a new car and have that. I'm assuming you have a car right now because you don't have a car payment, correct?
I do, yeah. No, I do have a car, but they pay for it.
Is there a payment on it?
Yeah.
It's financed? Okay. I'm not the biggest fan of financing cars, so maybe there's a world where you kind of help start paying that off quicker too.
Yeah.
Don't go get a new car, and let's be investing money versus taking on credit card debt, taking on a new car loan, whatever that might look like. So let's talk about your current expenses. We'll kind of run through this. Obviously, right now you don't have any rent. You pay about $140 a month in gas. Groceries about $240, and then we have eating out $100 a month. Gifts about $115. Health and fitness $63. Personal care $25. Shopping $250. So that brings your total monthly expenses to about $940 a month. According to this sheet, your net income is $876. So that puts you at spending more money than you're bringing in on this budget.
Yes. Now, so I guess in the shopping category, I bought a purse and it was like $190, and my dad gave me $100. I guess like $100 of the spending wasn't actually from my income. That's that. Yeah.
So do you budget your money at all right now?
Okay. So when I got my first paycheck, I spent it in 3 days. Like because I had never had money, but like I had never had money like that really. I mean, $250 I would get for my grades or whatever, maybe $300. But I get my first paycheck, it's like $430. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is going to
live large in Miami.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's so much money. What am I even going to spend this on? Yeah, well, 3 days later, it was completely gone. I don't even remember on what I did. it was gone. And I was like, okay, clearly that wasn't as much money as I thought it was. It's not going to go as far as I think it will. So yeah, each paycheck I've been getting a little better and a little better. I think the one I just got, now I'm getting on it, because now I kind of plan, okay, I plan to put $50 into my savings, and then I plan this much for like just donations or whatever, and then I'm like, okay, I know I'm gonna have to spend $50 on gas this week, so I'm gonna need to make sure that I have enough money to last me through like my next paycheck, which I'm like learning kind of like what I'm spending money on, what I need, what I don't need. So I am getting better about that, but yeah, it was rough at first because like I had no money because it would just go away.
And understood. I mean, when jumping out into the real world and first paycheck comes in, and that's the problem with
Yeah.
that's the problem with the world in America right now is that you're not taught, hey, this is what you need to do. You weren't taught in high school. This is what you're supposed to do in class when you get your first paycheck, or what taxes are, or this is how much stuff costs, like how to budget, what credit card debt is. And that's why a lot of people do find themselves in credit card debt, because same instance that you're like, oh, my money's gone within 3 days. People do that, except they're swiping on a credit card. And then next thing you know, they swiped $600 and their paycheck was $500. So now they got to carry a $100 balance on it. Next month they spend $1,000 and make $800. They got, now the credit card debt just continues to accumulate because they're not tracking where anything's going. Not tracking how much they're spending, and money can go a lot quicker than it comes in. Obviously there's a lot of ways to make money in this world, but there's a lot of ways to spend money. I mean, you could spend a lot of money in a day going to the mall, going to buying a house, buying a car, a lot of things in life, traveling. So if you're not being intentional about your money, it's going to disappear just as quickly as it came in. So
absolutely. And that was one aspect is I do want to build credit. So I did consider, okay, what if I get a credit card? But then after the way I spent my first paycheck, I was like,
bad idea.
I think until I'm, yeah. So I was like, I think until I'm extremely like stable and very like aware of how much money I'm making and very confident, I'm like, I think I would need to like set rules for myself, or at least be to the point where I don't have no money by the end of the 2 weeks before I get paid, and I have literally no money to spend the last few weeks before I get paid, or the last few days before I get paid again. So I think once I get to the point where I'm not like that and I budget my paychecks very well, then maybe from there I could get a credit card and begin to build credit. But I don't want to spend money that I don't have. So
I'll give you a few tips of advice, and take this advice if you want to. If not, it's up to you. Anyone watching this, take this advice too if you want to. But that's what I'm trying to do to help educate is 2 things. One, budgeting your money every single month. Use a platform like Mint is one that I use. There's ones like Copilot. There's ones like Every Dollar. But there's different budgeting platforms out there that they link up to your bank account. They automatically categorize stuff. I know you sent me a screenshot. I guess it's just your bank account that has all those transactions in there that has a spending income, or is that an app you use?
No, that was just in my app. I have USAA.
Yeah, so I use a separate app than my bank account. Makes it a little bit easier. Connects different bank accounts, connects investment accounts, connects credit cards. But definitely suggest setting up a budget and you start allocating. Obviously, you're 2 months on your own right now, so your spending is going to fluctuate, trying to figure out where you're kind of landing. Just make sure that you are spending less money than you're bringing in. But that way you set boundaries on yourself and you're like, okay, I'm only going to spend $250 a month on shopping. That means if you spend $150 the first weekend and the next weekend you go somewhere like, oh, this $200 dress or $200 this, okay, maybe I have to wait till next month for it. And you have to think twice about it. Or you set a food budget of $400 a month and you go ball out on dinner the first weekend and spend $250 buying, I don't know what, then okay, I'm not going to be able to eat out for the next 3 weeks until the kind of month ends. So by budgeting and putting parameters on what your spending should be, that just allows you to be very intentional about it. My wife and I, we look at our budget every Sunday and look, okay, this is what we have for the next few weeks, for the next week, maybe the month's ending. And we're like, okay, great. We're on track for our food budget. We're going to go out to eat. Or, hey, our food budget, we know we're going on vacation in a few weeks. Let's make sure that maybe we eat a cheaper restaurant tonight, or we stay in for a couple nights to make sure that we can have more money when we want to spend on vacation and go eat at nice restaurants and fun places. So just having a budget makes you be very intentional about it. It makes you just understand where your money's going and you track it versus just spending it and hoping it's there at the end of each month. So first suggestion is use a budgeting tool that combines all your different accounts on there, set spending limits and goals each month. And it doesn't have to be something that takes hours and hours of your time. You set it up and you track it, look at it maybe on Sunday every week. You kind of figure out your cadence there. It doesn't need to be checked every single day, but if you're about to go spend a big purchase or something, just glance at your app, say, okay, I have this much to spend, or this, I don't have this to spend. And that just allows you to be more cognizant of where your money is so you don't overspend. That's my first suggestion. My second suggestion is credit cards. You're spot on right now. I would not suggest you get a credit card right now, 2 months on your own, if your first paycheck disappeared in 3 days, because that will lead you to swiping a card that, oh, I don't have to pay it off until the end of next month. Or, oh, I can afford this right now, because you don't see it coming out of your bank account. And credit cards are polarizing because people are like, I want a credit card because I want to build credit. I want the free rewards. But then we also hit $1 trillion of credit card debt in America this past month or this month. And that's not a small number at all. $1 trillion is a lot of money. And that most people have the same mindset going into credit cards that, hey, I'm going to pay this off in full every single month. But then life happens, emergencies come up and they swipe it, or they don't track their spending, they swipe it, and then they find themselves in a hole. And then they start paying 30% interest rates to the bank, and banks love that. I mean, most banks, credit card companies earn probably about 2/3 of their revenue from interest rates. And they're not paying out credit card rewards from people swiping their cards. They're paying out credit card rewards from interest rate payments from people that are behind on their payments. So credit cards, I mean, I use a credit card. I do, but I've never missed a balance on my credit card. I paid off probably basically every single week I paid off. And I understand when I have a balance on there, I paid off. I've never carried a balance. I've never paid interest on my credit cards. I use it like a debit card. And if you're not using your credit card like a debit card, making sure you have the money in your bank account, that you can actually afford it, it's going to put you in a situation like you're one of the millions of Americans that have tens of thousands of dollars worth of credit card debt. And that's going to push you in such a deep hole that's very difficult to climb out of. So I would suggest don't get a credit card anytime soon. Make sure you just get on your feet, increase your income too. Making $1,000 a month, obviously, it's a very going to be easy way to swipe a credit card, spend $1,000 and just kind of push it on. So
I think that is one thing that actually I will say my dad taught me. Because my parents, they're not credit card people. They're not like, as far as I know, they're not like in debt or anything. And they're not like, they don't put stuff on credit cards. My dad, he had his Marriott credit card and his Southwest credit card for travel and stuff, obviously. But like, I remember, because I think you get rewards if you use like the Marriott or the Southwest card or something. So I remember, if we'd go out to eat, he would use his Marriott card because he'll get like rewards back and Marriott points to go to a hotel. But then literally he would, like, I would watch him transfer money, like, or pay it off right there. Like, he'd use that card, but then pay it off, like, with his debit card or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. He
would pay for it right
like a debit card and made sure that he wasn't going to spend money that he didn't have. And that's the only way to use credit cards. Otherwise, you just find yourself in a pile of debt that's just very difficult to get out of. And that's the issue with America right now is our credit card debt's just soaring and people can't afford to pay the minimum payments on their credit cards. Stuff's going to collections. People are falling behind on payments, and it's a very vicious cycle to get out of. And and frankly, a lot of people chase credit cards for rewards. And then guess what? To get rewards, you have to spend money. And then people start spending more than money they can afford. Because I spent $3,000 in the first month to get this reward. Usually they only spend $2,000. So you just spend $1,000 extra to get a $500 reward. Doesn't really make sense there. And they find themselves in debt. So credit cards can be a very dangerous game to play if you don't, quote unquote, play it right and pay it off every single month. And on the flip side, when it comes to building credit, that's definitely something, frankly, a lot of people will take out credit cards or take out car loans to, quote unquote, build credit. And I don't love that strategy at all. If your goal is to take on debt to build credit, it's not a good situation to be in. I've never financed a car. I've never had credit card debt, and I have an 800 something credit score because I pay my credit card off in full every single month. And I don't need to go get a car loan to increase my credit score. I don't need to go into credit card debt to have minimum payments that I hit every single month to prove my credibility. It's something that comes if you do have a credit card and you pay it off in full every single month, your credit score should continue to increase over time. So don't worry. People fixate a lot on the credit score in terms of like hacking life. It does help when it comes to like getting a mortgage on my house. It helped me because I got a lower interest rate having a higher credit score than if I had a 600 credit score. But credit scores only really matter when you're going into debt because credit card companies look at it because you're essentially taking on debt from credit cards when you use a credit card, or car companies look at your credit score when you're taking a loan from them, and they're just making sure that you're credit worthy, take on debt. But at the same time, if you want to live in my opinion, an anxious-free life, a more enjoyable life, having no consumer debt is the best way to do that versus trying to just focus on your credit score. So suggestions, don't glorify, over focus on the credit score. It will come. You're 18 years old. It will come with time. Once you get yourself in a good financial situation, once you understand finance, you start budgeting, and maybe it's 2-3 years from now, you do open your first credit card when you get your first job that's paying, living on your own fully with all your living expenses paying for that you can afford that. Then you kind of get your feet settled. Okay, maybe you look at credit card options at that point, but I wouldn't suggest doing it anytime soon until you kind of have yourself kind of fully grounded, fully off your parents' payroll, so you can make sure you're not going to spend money more than you can afford right now. So,
Okay. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, Breck, what questions do you have for me? What can I answer for you? How can I help?
I think just with, actually, you kind of answered it, because what I was going to ask about is like Acorns, because I obviously am interested in investing, but I like didn't know, I guess, the right way to go about it. So I guess just with Acorns, it was what was it called? That where you're investing in a lot of stocks, like a little part of each.
Yeah, so those are called index funds.
Index funds, okay.
Yeah, so Acorns, I'm pulling up their website right here. I mean, they have, let's see, I know they have a lot of different funds. Let's see. So like their aggressive, they call it, portfolio is 55% large company stocks, 10% medium company stocks, 5% small companies, and 30% international. And so those are all different types of index funds they have. So they have like a large cap one, they have a small cap one. They have other ones that are like a conservative portfolio that has more bonds. They have like moderate aggressive ones. They have different ones just dependent on your riskiness or your desire to be more risky. When you're younger, typically it's better to be more aggressive because you're younger, you have more time on your side. When you're getting older, you want to have more, you want to be less risk, you want to be more risk averse because you don't want the volatility of the stock market. Say if you're 60 or 70 years old, you don't want to have the ups and downs as much. So maybe you're more in bonds at that point. So that's more like the conservative side. But they ask you a bunch of different questions on the onboarding, I think, that say which kind of fits your needs or desires a little bit more. If you have a higher risk tolerance, they say go more on the moderate aggressive or the aggressive side. If you want and a longer time horizon, like if you're going to be investing, that should be money that you're not going to touch for the next 5 years because the market flows up and down and you can't time the market. And also, so if your time horizon is longer, maybe it's better to go more on the aggressive side. If your time horizon is shorter, maybe it's better to be on the conservative side. So they have some different details on their website about kind of which route that might be best for you. And I'll send you some details on that. But personally, I think it's a good platform to kind of get your feet in the water with investing. I've gotten multiple friends signed up on Acorns, how they started first investing. And then after that, once you kind of get more comfortable, then maybe open a Vanguard account or a Charles Schwab account instead of auto invest on those platforms yourself. But for ease of use, Acorns, Betterment, Stash, Wealthfront, all those are different types of auto investing platforms that make it easy and clean to use. I use Acorns and Betterment. Stash and Wealthfront I haven't used before, but I've heard good things about them. But most of them are typically all pretty similar in their investments in terms of different categories and types of funds they go into. So.
Okay. I think my only other question would be like, so for me, I would do like 10% of my paycheck and I would put that into savings, but I already have $500 in savings. So I'm like, I don't know how much I actually really want in savings. Like, so I'm saying I'd rather, I guess, use that 10% to invest long term. But like, would you say I need more in savings, or is 500 probably fine? That's just like not even something I touch, just kind of more like a safety thing, I don't know.
That's a great question. So there's we call it an emergency fund. So typically an emergency fund is what people suggest to have is 3 to 6 months of living expenses. So say if your living expenses right now, like bare necessities, shopping and spending $500 a month is not a necessity. So like, that's not your emergency fund. But say you have, we'll use this as an example. Say you have $1,000 rent. Say you have $500 between groceries and gas. Say you have $200 of other things, or which round of $2,000. Say you have $2,000 of necessities, then you want 3 to 6 months of expenses saved up in a high yield savings account. So if it's $2,000 and you want 3 months, that's $6,000. If you want 6 months of living expenses, that'd be $12,000. So I would definitely suggest that you kind of build up your emergency fund before investing, because say your car breaks down and your parents aren't willing to help you in that instance, then you want to pay that for yourself. You need money to do that. Say you need tires or whatever it might be. But this is more for emergencies. This isn't, hey, let's save this for $2,000 and then, hey, let's go to Hawaii, let's go to Cancun or wherever it might be and spend money on using your emergency fund. This should be a fund that's only touched in instances of emergencies. But I would suggest getting into more of the like 3 to 6 months of emergency fund expenses before investing. It allows you to just have more of a safety net. Obviously, your situation is a little bit different because your parents are still helping you out with living situations. But say if you were working full-time, off parents weren't helping at all, I'd say, yes, you need to get 3 to 6 months of living expenses in your emergency fund before you start investing. So Dave Ramsey. Have you heard of Dave Ramsey before?
I don't think so.
So he's very well known in terms of helping people pay off debt, and he has something called the 7 baby steps. It's like the first step is $1,000 for emergency fund. That's a very debatable topic. A lot of people will say it's not enough for an emergency fund. Others say it is. Number 2 is pay off all debt, which in this instance, you don't currently have any debt. Number 3 is save 3 to 6 months of living expenses. So in this instance, if your living expenses are $1,000 a month, you want to have $3,000 to $6,000 in your emergency fund. And then step 4, you start to invest. I'd probably save up more than right now you have $500. I'd save up more over the next probably 3 to 6 months, start saving a couple $100 a month and kind of build that nest egg up and put it in a high yield savings account where you're not going to touch it. And when that money gets in there, put it in a separate account. So you don't like, oh, new person at the mall, let's swipe this, or new whatever, let's swipe the debit card. Put it in an account that's not linked to your debit card so you don't even see it. And then after that, let's start putting up the reoccurring investing into an Acorns account or some sort of index fund, auto investment thing where you don't have to think about it. So that's a great question.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, Breck, do you have any other questions for me today?
No, I think that's it.
Awesome. Well, I really do appreciate you coming on here and being transparent about everything and talking about your financial situation, and really hope this was beneficial for you. I mean, you're in a great spot. You're 18 years old. You have no debt. You're essentially kind of where a lot of people are when they're going to college, and you're having a part-time job right now while you're also chasing your career in the cheerleading world right now. But hope this conversation was beneficial for you to start just thinking about your financial future, start planning that, and kind of see, especially right now, you have the best thing in the world, which is time on your side. And if you start investing now, start thinking about and set up those systems now for finances, start educating yourself more on finances, you're going to be a lot better off than most people your age when you're 22, 23, 30, 40, 50, 60. So if you start putting these plans and systems in place now, start educating yourself, this is going to pay dividends to you over the course of your life. So,
hey, thank you.
Awesome.
Breck, you have great knowledge.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and we'll chat soon.
All right. Sounds good.